Here we are at the DuPont station in the DC Metro. The Metro is the subway system that's the heavy rail for all of DC. It's one of the best examples of infrastructure. Today we're going to talk about infrastructure in cities. I'm Mr. Coulter and this is Human Geography. Today our focus is infrastructure. Infrastructure is topic 6.7 as we talk about urbanization in cities. Infrastructure seems boring, but it is the thing that keeps our cities afloat and humans able to live in such dense spaces together. The location and quality of a city's infrastructure directly affects its spatial patterns of economic and social development. Infrastructure are things like bridges, roads, tunnels, electrical grids, sewage, all this stuff that allows people to move around and work and live in such a dense area. So we're going to go through the different types of infrastructure. But before we do, we need to know the term infrastructure. Infrastructure is the basic physical and organizational structures and facilities needed for the operation of a city. Infrastructure projects, like those in the Great Depression that FDR instituted, part of his New Deal, can help give people jobs in order to help them work as a part of building a better city and connected landscape. So let's look at the specific examples of types of infrastructure. Highways are a big one. The Eisenhower highway system connected our entire country on a grid-based system. Fun fact that you might not know, the interstate system is based on a west to east number system. So 5 runs along the west coast and goes up to get to 75, 85, and 95 that run along the east coast. Also, the zeros, so the even numbers, run from south to north. So 10 runs through the bottom part of our country, where 90 runs along the north side. Bridges are an important piece of infrastructure and need to be repaired regularly in order to avoid catastrophes. They help to connect places that otherwise couldn't be. Some of our best landmarks are bridges, like the Golden Gate or Brooklyn Bridge. Mass transit is another form of infrastructure. Things like the subway system in New York City or the metro in DC help people stay connected to work without having to own their own cars and pollute and jam up the city's parking and traffic. You can have both light rail and heavy rail transit. Airports are also a piece of infrastructure. This is the Atlanta airport, where Delta is headquartered, and it has the most flights in and out per year of any airport in the United States. Waste management is a very important but often looked over part of infrastructure because it allows us to get rid of all the things that we don't want sitting around in our streets. Urban streets used to be extremely dirty prior to waste management systems. Telecommunication and internet access are also important parts of infrastructure because they allow people to stay connected and a part of the global culture. Water supplies, like our 2 water towers, help us to keep clean water accessed for everyone and also creates a back storage in case we have some sort of an emergency. So infrastructure and development. There's a cycle that takes place with infrastructure where if you have good infrastructure, it helps to further the lives of your citizens. So a good cycle of infrastructure shows that developed cities often have better infrastructure. This better infrastructure leads to more economic opportunities. Think about someone who lives in a part of the city that's very dense. If they are from a lower class background and don't have as much money, they are able to get connected by getting on a piece of public transit and take their public transit for a short commute to a job in a better part of town. That job in a better part of town might fund them to send their children to a better school or for them to get a college degree at a night school, and allows them to then move up into an even better job and further that cycle of development. Areas without good infrastructure tend not to develop as quickly or they leave entire groups in poverty. So an example of this would be if you don't have a timely commute to work, you are more likely to not be able to do the best job because you're spending so much time commuting. Also, those who can't afford cars have to rely on public transit. So if you're in a city with bad public transit, you might not be able to get to a better job. You might be stuck in the minimum wage job that doesn't help you get out of poverty. And it's an endless cycle of people being able to not escape these routes that hurt them. I saw this firsthand when I worked a job at the doctor's office at Piedmont Hospital, where one of my coworkers had an over 2-hour commute on public transit every morning and afternoon. So that meant she had to get her kids ready for school before leaving, leave them before they could get on a bus, and they had to get on a bus by themselves because she had 2 hours that it took to get over to her job. She made this sacrifice in order to get more money to provide a better life for her kids, but not everyone is able to commit their 8-hour workday plus 2 hours on either side, so 12 hours away from home and your children, in order to get out of this cycle. So better infrastructure promotes people being able to move up through economic classes. And we see this tie to the infrastructure in China, not just in the United States. The expressway system of China connects all of the East Coast to the big cities around the eastern half of China. But it is less connected to the western and the more rural parts of China that are mainly farming economies and a lot of subsistence farmers. We see that as cities are connected to this expressway system that gets them to be a part of the East Coast expansion, that also raises them out of poverty. So the richest part of China is on the East Coast, around these big cities, and the areas that are least connected by the highway system are the ones that are poorer than average in China, and the wealthier parts are the ones that are more connected to this new highway system. So we see that the connection to infrastructure helps promote economic development in parts of China. That was 6.7, infrastructure. We learned about the different types of infrastructure and how important it is to be connected to good infrastructure to develop your city and country. We'll continue to talk about this with our future problems in cities that we talk about in further topics. But learning about infrastructure is just one step to better understanding our world. I'm Mr. Coulter, and this was Human Geography.